just want to go over what recurrence relations are. So we've got an example here. I'll just give you a moment to read that. So down the right hand side I've got A0, A1 up to A5, and they're the amounts of money that are in the account. A0 is how much there's in there at the start, and then the A1 is the amount in the account at the end of the first year, at the end of the second year, and so on. So these are the amounts that we need to calculate. The account pays 8% per annum, so to work out how much there is in the end of the first year is simply 100 times, what's our multiplier going to be? 108. And we're going to use the same multiplier each time because it increases by the same amount each time, 8%. So what's happening is we've got our initial amount, and to find out the next amount we multiply by 1.28, and we do exactly the same calculation each time. We'll do the last two. So why is this a recurrence relation? It's because we're carrying out the same calculation each time, but it's like the input number is the output from the previous calculation. If we think of it in terms of a number sequence, we put a value in, we carry out the function, and we get a number out. But then the number that we get out at the end, that goes in at the start, and we start the process again. One way of expressing this more generally is to say, instead of A0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, is to call the general term AN. So that just stands for whatever term we're talking about. It's a general term. But to find the next term in the sequence, the next term is, or the next amount is AN plus 1. So A1 is, that's 1 more than 0. 5 is 1 more than 4. AN plus 1 is 1 more than n. So to work out AN plus 1, we do AN times 1.08. So our recurrence relation we find the next term in the sequence by doing the term n times by 1.08. Let's look at one more example. Again, I'll give you a minute just to read through the question. Okay, so it's a little bit more of an involved question, a bit more like the questions you'll come across in your exam, but it's the same idea. We've got our initial amount that we've taken out the mortgage on, and then we're going to do a calculation each time to find out the amount still owing at the end of the first 5 years. So we're paying interest of 3% of what's on at the start of the year. So how do we find a 3% increase? What's that as a multiplier? £1.03. However, during the year we're also paying back £1,000 per month. So every year we're paying back £12,000. So that gives us our amount at the end of the year. And we're going to do exactly the same calculation again, but to find the amount at the end of the second year, but instead of 100,000 we've got 91,000. And we carry on. So the operation that we're carrying out is we multiply by 1.03 and subtract 12,000. And again, we put a value in at the start. We start off with 100,000, and then the number that we get out at the end, that goes back to the start, and we carry out the operation on that number, 91,000. We get out 81,730, and that becomes our input number. So how do we work out the next term in the sequence? It's the previous answer times 1.03 minus 12,000. That's our recurrence relationship.